Hi guys, welcome to the 0x14.mysql project. So in this project, we're going to do all the tasks that are here. So I'm not going to show you guys exactly how to find the solutions, but then I'm just going to help you and guide you through the whole thing. So we're going to start with task 0. So task 0 requires you to install MySQL 5.7 and then add the whole button public key to both your servers so that they'll be able to access your servers and check if you've done the correct thing. So to start with, you need to go to the concepts part of the same 0x14.mysql project, and you'll find the part that says how to install MySQL 5.7. So once you tap on that, you're going to find a link at the top. So you're going to find the link at the top, the part that says copy the key here to your clipboard. So you just tap on that same link and it's probably going to bring this page for you. So once it brings this page, just scroll downwards and you'll find the part that says begin PGP public key block. So just go there in the top right corner and tap on it, and it's going to copy that key. So once the key has been copied, you can then secure shell into your Web01 server. So you can access it in whatever way that you access it. Of course, for me, since I added the path to my private key in the SSH config file, I don't specify the path to the private key using the I option. So Ubuntu at Web01. Of course, this part you are supposed, if you want, you can replace it with your Web01 IP address. I'm just using the domain name because I find it much easier to remember. So if you want, you can say SSH, then -I, then you specify the path to your private key. So once you log into your Web01 server, you then need to follow these guidelines that are there. So because we already copied that, you can now create a file, maybe called signature. So you can make any file. Of course, I named mine signature.asc, but if you want, you can name it signature.key. So once you copy this file, you enter into the file. So you press, excuse me. So you press enter so that you edit the file using VI. Then you press insert and paste the key that you copied from that particular page that we went to. So once you paste the key into this file, it's going to look like this. So once you paste it, just press escape, then double click to letter Z in order to exit the page and in order to exit the file and save it. So once you do that, you then run the command sudo apt key add. So sudo apt key add signature.key, and it's going to no such file or directory. Sorry, I named mine signature.asc. That's why it failed. So it's supposed to bring OK. So sudo apt key add signature.asc, and once it does this, you then run the command. Of course, you're not supposed to put the hash that I've put here. I've just put it because it's a comment, because I already did this and I don't want to repeat doing the same thing. So you run this command sudo shc echo without the hash here at the beginning. So just run this command and it's going to append your key to this file. It's hiapt sources.list.d mysql.list. So once you do this, you then need to update. So in order to update, you simply say sudo apt get. So get update, and this is going to update your server. So for some of you guys, once you run apt get update, it's going at the end of the update, it's going to bring something like skipping because a certain key is not available. So it's going to bring a particular number, with letters. So for those of you guys who is going to bring that, you need to run this command. So you simply run this command sudo apt key adv without the hash there, of course. So sudo apt key add adv key server ubuntu.com recover keys. Then you add the specific number together with letters that you are going to see as the key that's missing. So you replace this part B7, B3, B788 up to C with the number that's going to show as the number that's missing, and then you run sudo apt get update once more. So once you do these things, you can now check if you have the package for MySQL 5.7. So you can run this command in order to check my sudo apt cache policy MySQL server. And as you can see, mine shows 5.7.42/1 -1 Ubuntu 18.04 5000. So I have the necessary package in order to install MySQL 5.7. So once this is done, you can now run this command sudo apt install MySQL client 5.7. Of course, if you want, you can remove the star. Then you just specify and say 5.7 point the package name that you're going to see here. For me, it's 42. So if you want, you can remove that. So if you want, you can just leave it like that and it will still work. So you run these commands and they are going to help you to install MySQL 5.7. So if you want, you can pause the video right now and execute these commands so that you install MySQL 5.7. So now we need to make sure that the Hobbiton user is able to access our servers. So now how do we get to do that? So you first of all need to check if you have the .ssh file. Excuse me. If you have the .ssh file already at the root of your home, so you can say ls lso, and as you guys can see, mine already has .ssh. So I'll just change directory to the same .ssh folder. So once I'm there, then you can do ls and you'll find a path that says authorized keys. So you can open that file using sudo privileges. So sudo vi, then authorized keys. So you open it using sudo privileges so that you'll be able to edit it. So once you open the file, you find this key which was already added. When we access the server, this key was already added. Then this is your public key. Then you need to add the public key for the Hobbiton user, which is this one. If you go back to the SSH project, I think, yeah, the SSH project, you will find this public key. They gave it to us, so you can just copy this same public key and then add it to this file so that the Hobbiton user will be able to access the server. So once you are done, you press escape and double capital letter Z in order to save the file. So these same things that we've done on Web 01 are the same things that you're supposed to do on Web 02. So you can pause the video right now and do these very things on Web 02 as well. Then once you are done with that, then you are also done with task 0. So let's now go to task 1. So task 1 says create a MySQL user named Hobbiton user on both Web 01 and Web 02 with the host name set to localhost and the password project correction to ATHPTN. So in order to do that, I'm first of all going to need to go to the MySQL shell. So in order to do that, I'll just say MySQL. So MySQL u, then root, then p, then you just enter your password, the password that you're using for the root user. So once you enter, then need to create a user named Hobbiton user. So in order to create the user, you simply say create user. So the user is Hobbiton user. So create user that at. So it's supposed to be at localhost. So localhost, then you say identified. So identified by, then you add any password. Then you add the password that we've been told to add, which is project correction 280 HPTN. So you run this command and it's going to create the user for you. Of course, for me, it's not going to work because I already have the user. If I also say select, so select user, host from mysql.user, it's going to show to say that I already have the Hobbiton user. So I already made this Hobarton user, and it's at localhost. So the host is localhost and the user is Hobarton user. So you just run that command, and you can check if the user has been added using this command: select user host from mysql.user. So once you create this user, you need to give this user permission to check the primary replica status of your database. So in order to do that, you simply say grant. So grant replication client. Sorry, I made a mistake there. So grant replication client on all the databases to, then you say Hobarton at localhost. So you grant the privileges to that, then you exit that with a semicolon. So grant replication client on all the databases to Hobarton user at localhost. So once you are done with these things, then you are done with task 1 as well. So just pause the video for now. So you simply exit. So you simply exit this. So once you exit, you can now check if it's working. So you run a command using Hobarton user, show grants for Hobarton user at localhost. Then you simply copy the same password that we gave Hobarton user, which is project correction 280 HBTN. You paste it there, and it's going to show you the grants for the Hobarton user. Of course, for you guys, for now, just focus on this first part. So as long as it shows grant replication client on all databases to Hobarton user at localhost, then it's okay. Don't focus on these two for now. So at this point, you can pause the video and do these very things on your Web02 server. So you can just exit from this server, then go to your Web02 server and do these very things. So now let's go to task 2. So task 2 says create a database named Tyrell Corp. So let me log into my MySQL again. So let me just enter my password. Okay, so now once you are logged into your MySQL, you can now create a database. So you simply say create database. Of course, since I already created it, I'm going to use if not exists so that it doesn't fail. So if not exists, then the database name is Tyrell Corp. So you just copy that database name, then you do that, and it's going to say query OK, but then the database already exists. If I was to run the command show databases, so show databases, it's going to show the Tyrell Corp database. So once you create that database, then you can say use Tyrell Corp. And this is going to change the database. So it's going to say database change. So you are now in the database Tyrell Corp. So once you're in this database, you can now create the table. So it says within Tyrell Corp database, create a table named Nexus6 and add at least one entry to it. So to create a table, you simply say create. So create table, because I already have the table, I'm just going to say if not exists. So create table if not exists, then the table name is Nexus6. Then you can now specify the different attributes that you want the table to have. So you want it to have an ID, so it's going to be int. Of course, since it's going to be a primary key, I don't want it to be now. Then you now say primary key. Then you now say primary key, then comma. Then you also add the name attribute. Then I'm just going to add varchar. So varchar, if you want, you can give it 50 or any number that you think is reasonable. Then you close that and you end it with a semicolon. So I can run enter and it's okay because the table already exists and these are the same attributes that it has. So once you do those things, you can use the command, something like maybe describe. So describe, then you can describe the table, which is Nexus6, in order to see if the table exists. So we have field ID int 11, then now no, and then the default is now, then key. So ID is the primary key in order to check if the table has been created. or you can say show tables, and this is going to show you the tables that you have in this particular database. So we have the table nexus, and now we need to insert at least one value. Now, for you guys, at first, if you want, you can put the ID as 1, but then I'm just going to put the ID as 0. So insert into nexus 6, then values. If you want, you can add multiple values using comma separation. So values, I'm just going to add the value. I'm going to say 0 for the ID, then the name, I'm going to put heart. So this is going to say query OK, and now I can check what's in that table using select all from nexus 6, and it's going to show me the different things that are in here. So all these are the different entries that I have in this particular table. So now that you've successfully created that table, you now need to give select permissions on the table for the whole button user. So we'll say grant, so grant select on. So the database is ThyroCorp. So in order to lessen the burden, we just say we want to grant select options on any table in this particular database. So you can simply say grant selection on ThyroCorp.star to specify that any table that's in this database. Then we're going to say true. So you're supposed to grant these permissions to whole button user at local host. So this is going to be for the whole button user. So whole button user at localhost. So once you run this command, it's going to grant select on ThyroCorp.star to whole button user. And so the whole button user will now be able to do select permissions on this particular database. Now for this task 2, you're not supposed to do the same things on web02. You're only supposed to do these things that we've done on the same web01 server. So now you can exit and check if everything is working perfectly fine. So you can simply say MySQL user, whole button user, then password, then use ThyroCorp, select star from Nexus 6. So the password, so you again copy the same password, project correction 280 HBTN, and you paste it there. And it's going to show all the entries in the table. So if you didn't grant select on ThyroCorp to the whole button user, this is not going to work. So once you are done with this, then you are done with task 2. We can now go to task 3. So task 3 says before you get started with your primary replica synchronization, you need one more thing in place. Whatever. So the first thing is the name of the new user. You need to create a user for the same primary replica synchronization. So you again log into your MySQL client, then you enter the password. So once that is done, you now need to create a user called replica user. So the same command, I'm going to say create user. So create user, then the username is replica user. So I'm just going to copy that. So replica user at, so it's supposed to be this %. Then you say identified, I hope I've spelled that correctly. So identified with, so now for this part, you are supposed to say identified with MySQL native password. So you say MySQL native password. Then after you specify the MySQL native password, then you put by, then you give this user any password that you want. But for me, it's of course not going to work because I already have the user. If I run select name, select user, comma host from MySQL.user it's going to show that I already have the user called replica user and the host is the percentage sign. So you need to run this command and it's going to create this particular user. Now, once you create this user, you need to grant replication slave on the user. So you run the command grant. So grant replication slave. So grant replication slave on all of the databases. So grant replication slave on all the databases to, then you simply copy this same part which says replica user at that. So grant this to that, and it's going to say query OK, 0 rows affected, and it's going to show that. So once you are done with this, you now need to grant select on, you need to allow the Hopperton user to do select privileges on mysql.user so that they'll be able to see the different users that you have in your MySQL database on the particular server, which is web 01. So in order to do that, you say grant. So grant select on, so you simply say mysql.user to, then you now specify the Hopperton user. So you can simply copy Hopperton user there. So Hopperton user at, of course, it's localhost. So at localhost. So once you run this command, now going to say query OK, so 0 rows affected. Then that's the time that it took in order to run the command. So once you are done with all these different commands that we've done, you can now flash privileges. So you simply say flash. So flash privileges, it's going to update the database record. So after you are done with all this, then you can now go to task 4, because after this, then you are done with task 3. Then of course, if you want to verify and check if it's working, you simply copy MySQL user Hopperton. So I'm just going to paste it there. So MySQL user Hopperton, then you copy the password, which is project correction 280 HBTN, and you press enter and it's going to show this table. So now the part that we are interested in is the ones that have the privilege for the replication slave. So you can notice that replica user has that privilege. So it's saying yes. So once you see this, then you are done with task 3. Now task 4 is the longest of them all. And so we are going to do this step by step. And I want you guys to follow me closely. So the first thing that we need to do is generate a key on web 01 server. So we need to generate a key, and we are going to use secure shell. So secure shell gen, and this is going to create a key for you. So it says enter file in which to save the key. So you can specify any file that you want. So I want the key, of course, to be in the home folder, and then Ubuntu, which is the user.ssh. So I'm just going to copy that. Then this key is going to be called, you can give it any name as long as you don't forget what the key name is. So I'm going to say hard, then RSA. So this is the key that's going to be generated. And for passphrase, to lessen the burden, just don't add any passphrase for now, so that you'll be able to follow along in the tutorial. So just press enter without adding anything. Again, you press enter without typing anything, and this will create the key called hard.rsa. Then this is the public key, which we are interested in, which is hard.rsa.pub. Now, to make things much more easier for us, we are going to modify a certain file. So this file is found in the etc. folder. So it's ssh, then ssh, it should be ssh config. It's taken, yeah. So it's this one. So of course I'm supposed to open it with sudo privileges so that I'll be able to edit it. So sudo vi, then that, etc. ssh config. So when you open this file, you can uncomment this part so that you don't allow any password authentication. Then this is the part that we are interested in. So you just come here, or even just at the end of the file, then you can comment out any other part that says identity file, then copy this same part that says identity file, then add the path to your private key. So in our case, we created a private key called hard. So the private key was called hard RSA. So once you press enter, it's of course going to bring this, which means it's a comment. So you can just remove that so that it will no longer be a comment. Then you can copy this part that says identity file, then you paste it there. Then I'm just going to specify the path because it was added in the home directory. So that's .ssh. Then you say hard, then RSA. So once you do that, then SSH is going to know, say that this is the file in which the private key is. So you won't need to add use the I option. You won't need to use the I option in order to tell SSH where the private key is. So once you do that, then you can now follow along in the tutorial. But if you don't want to, it's also fine. You can always use the I option in order to specify where the private key is. So after doing these things, you can now exit from this. So let me just first of all copy the public key. So I'm just going to say vi that. So this is where the public key is. So this is my public key. So you can just copy this public key. So of course it will say something like Ubuntu, then your web server's name. So you just copy this. So once you copy, then you can exit. You use double capital letter Z in order to exit. Then I'll again exit this. Then you can now log into your web02 server. So for me, I'm just going to use web02. So web02 that. Of course, you can replace this part with your web server's IP address. So I'm just going to say this, then it's going to be Ubuntu at that website, at that web server. So secure shell, and it's so if you want to use this command, you can again configure the same file that we configured in web01 in order to add the default path to your private key. So in this server, I'm going to open the file that's found in the .ssh folder. So .ssh folder, then it's called authorized keys. So you open this file. Of course, I need to open it with sudo privileges in order to edit the file. If you don't want to edit the file, then it's okay. You can just open it using vi. So sudo vi, then you need to paste the key that you got from the other server. So this is the key that I got from the other server. So this is the Hopperton user public key so that they'll be able to access web02 server. This is my public key. Then this is the public key from web01 server. So you simply come to this file and paste that key that you copied into this file. So once you do that, then web01 will be able to access web02 using secure shell. Now you're going to see the importance of that in a few minutes from now. So once we are done with this, I can now exit from web02, then I can now secure shell into web01 server again. So we are going to do a couple of things in the web01 server. So the first thing is we are supposed to allow, because we have the firewall working, because I already have the firewall. Let us just check if it. Okay, so I need root privileges, so you can just say sudo su. So let me just check if my firewall is working. So let me just say ufw status. Status that I see. Okay, so it's saying status active. So if you guys notice, for me, I already allowed port 3306, which is the default port that MySQL uses. So this here is the IP address for my web02 server. So now how can you also do the same thing? So in order to do that, you simply say UFW, then you say allow from, then you now add the IP address. So you add the IP address of your WebO2 server. So you add the IP address of your WebO2 server, then you now say UFW allow from IP address of WebO2. You now say to any port 3306. So 3306. So let me just try to run the command. I'm just going to remove this part that says IP address. Then let me add my WebO2 IP address, which is this one. So once you run this command, so it's going to say skipping adding existing rule because the rule already exists. But then you need to run this command in order to allow connection from this particular server onto this particular port, which MySQL uses, so that it will be so that WebO2 will be able to read the binary logs on WebO1 server. So once we are done with this, we now need to do a couple of things in a certain file. Now, the file that we are going to edit is etc. So etc MySQL, so MySQL slash MySQL .conf. Let me just press that. Okay, so .conf, then MySQL. So MySQL, etc. MySQL, then MySQL.conf .d, then my MySQL.cnf. So this is the folder, the file that we are going to edit. Okay, probably made a mistake in the spelling. So let me just check. So vi MySQL.conf.that. Then it's going to be my MySQL.d. Okay, so it's supposed to be MySQL.d that. So once you open this file, you need to add a part that says server ID. If you won't find it in your MySQL server, in your WebO1 server, then you can simply add this part that says server ID. So you say server ID is equal to 1, then log bin is equal to var, then /log/mysql bin.log. Of course, you can add any other file name here, but then you can just use this one if you want to. So you add this part, then you now add the bin log do db, then you now specify the database name that you want to add to the replication cluster. Now, if you, in a case where you want to add multiple databases, you can again add another bin log do db down here. So you can just press enter, then you add another one of these, then you again equate it to another database. Then you also add I think these are the only things. These are the only three things that you need to add. So server ID, bin log, log bin, as well as bin log do db. Then once you do all these things, you now need to do escape, then double capital letter Z in order to save the file. Because I was using root privileges, so there was no need of opening the file using sudo. But of course, if you're not using root privileges, then you need to open the file using sudo in order to edit the file. So once we are done with that, we now need to log into MySQL. So MySQL user root, then P. Then I'll need to enter the password. So once you enter the password, then we now need to show the master status. Of course, for us, there's no need of locking the database because there's no one else who's using the database at the moment. So there's no need of locking the database. So you can now say show master status. Show master status. So it's going to show the bin log db, which is styrocop. So you need to take note of these two, which is the file name, which is MySQL bin, this one. Then you also need to record position. So you also record this value. So you record these two values, then we're going to see the importance of this after some time from now. So exit, then you can now say service. So service MySQL restart, so that your MySQL will restart. So service MySQL restart. Of course, for some of you guys who are using certain like different operating systems, of course, the command that you're supposed to use might be different. So once we are done with this, we now need to retrieve the binary logs from the source. Of course, the source, which is the binary logs, are the contents that you've already added in the TyroCorp database. Now, for this one, there's no need to log the tables, as I said, because we don't have any users that are using the database at the moment. So the command that we are going to use is MySQL dump. So at this point, I can now exit from the root user. Of course, you can remain in the root user if you want to. So I'm just going to say, I'm going to use MySQL dump in order to get the binary log from web01, which is our source server. So I'm going to say MySQL dump, then you specify the user, which is root, then P, then I'm going to specify the database name, which is TyroCorp. So TyroCorp, then I'm going to output this. So you can give this file any name. Of course, it's going to show. So if you want, you can give it any name. So we're going to create binary log from there. So you just enter your MySQL password. So if I check, the file will now be here. So Tyro core, because I removed the P there, but if you want, you can just leave it as tyrocorp.sql. So once you do this, you now need to copy this file to your web02 server. So we're going to use SCP. So SCP, then tyro.sql. Then I'm going to copy this into my web02. So Ubuntu add. So you now add your web02, your web02 IP address. Then this dot tech. Then you now specify the path in which you want the file to be. So I'm just going to put it in the TMP folder, which is a folder for temporal things. So we'll just add this file into the TMP folder. So once you do these things, you can now secure shell into your web02 server. So because we already added the path to a private key in the SSH config file, there's no need of specifying the path to the private key using the I option. So I'm just going to say SSH, then Ubuntu. So SSH Ubuntu at web02 is this one. So I'm just going to say that. So secure shell Ubuntu at web02. And now we are in the web02 server. So if I was to check the TMP folder, Tyro core must be there. So we already have this one. So we have tyrocore.sql. It's already in the TMP folder. So now, once you do this, you now need to create the same TyroCorp database that we created on the other server, which is web01. So even this side, you again say MySQL u, which is root, and P for password. So let me just enter my password. Okay, so now that we're in this MySQL client, we can now say create. So create database if not exists, because I already have it. I just don't want it to fail. So if not exists, then Tyro corp. So let me just copy Tyro corp. So create database if not exists, Tyro corp. in order to create this particular database, I need to say query OK because I already have this database already made in my SQL. So once you create this database, you now need to dump whatever binary logs that you got from Web01. So we'll just exit from here. Then in order to dump whatever binary logs were there, we're just going to say MySQL u. Of course, I'm just going to comment this out, but don't put the hash there when running this command. So you say MySQL user is going to be root, then p, so that it prompts you for the password. So MySQL user root, then the password, and then you specify the database, of course, which is stereo. Then we want to the binary logs that we want to output into this one from the file that's in the tmp folder. So you simply say tmp, then slash stereo core dot asc dot cql dot sql. So this is what you are going to do in order to get all the records that are in that other database to reflect into this database. So once you do these things, you now need to edit another file. So the file that we are going to edit, of course, you need to open into sudo privileges in order to edit it, just in case it's protected, in case you can't open it as a regular user. So sudo vi, then slash etc slash mysql, then slash mysql conf.t, mysql.t, then mysql .cnf. So then this side, you now add server ID, which should now be equal to 2. This server ID is supposed to be a unique number for all the different replicas that you have. So that side server ID was 1. In Web02, put the server ID to be 2. Of course, you can add any other number as long as it's not 1, which Web01 has. So server ID to that, and the log bin is supposed to be the same log bin that you added that side. Then bin log 2db is supposed to be Tyrell Corp, which is the database that we want to replicate. Then you are supposed to also add relay log. So relay log, you're supposed to add this part that says var log mysql, then mysql relay bin.log. So once you add these things, then you are done. So upon adding these different things, you now need to restart your MySQL. So again, you say service MySQL restart. So service MySQL restart, but of course I need root privileges. So let's say that. So authentication complete, and this is going to restart my MySQL database. So after you are done with these things, we now need to open the MySQL. We now need to log into MySQL. So I'm just going to say MySQL root, user root, then password. So I'll just enter my password. So once you enter into your MySQL, you then type the command change. So you say change master to. So change master to, then you now specify the master host. So master host is supposed to be equal to the IP of the source. So you put IP of Web01. So this is the part where you're supposed to put the IP of Web01. Then you separate using comma. Then after adding master host, you then add the master user. So master user, which is the user that we made, which is replica user. So master user is supposed to be replica user. So let me just search for that. Okay. So replica user. So just paste that there. Then use a comma to separate. Then the next thing is master password. So master password. Then you need to add the same password that you added that side. So the same password that you made for this user, replica user, because we were taught to make any password that you want. So you make that you put that particular password that you made for the replica user. Then you now make another one, which is called master log file, which is a file that it's going to, which is a file that I told you guys to record. So for master log file, of course, for me it was something like MySQL bin, bin. Then it was something like 000, then 2. So if you did record that file name, so you need to record the file name. So under master log file, that's the file name that you need to add. Then you now add a comma after this one. Then you now say master log pose, which is position pose, and this will be equal to the position number that you recorded that side. I think it was something like 240 something. I've just forgotten. So it should be you should put the same number that you record that side under master. Of course, sorry, it's not supposed to be loss. It's supposed to be log. So log. So master log pose. Then you equate it to the number. For this one, you're not supposed to add. You're not supposed to add this. You're not supposed to add those. So you need to have master host, which is equal to the IP of web01, then master user, which is equal to the replica user, then master password, which is password, and then master log file, which is the same file that I told you guys to record earlier. Then master log pose will be equal to that. But then, of course, for me, this is going to fail because I haven't entered the correct details. But then you need to enter the correct details, and it's going to work for you. So once you do this, you now need to run the command start. So start slave. Then this is going to start the slave. So once you run this command, it's going to start slave. So you simply run this command, start slave. Of course, I've commented it out because I don't want to run it. So you just run it without the hash there. So just run start slave. Then once you start the slave, you can now check the status of the replica. So in order to check the status, you say show replica status. Then you can put the escape G there, and it's going to show the replica status. Let's see, no query specified. I don't know why this is failing to check. So let me try show slave or show master. Let me try show slave. Okay, so show slave is working. So you're not supposed to run show replica status, rather run show slave status. So when you say show slave status, it's probably going to say this. So waiting for master to send event. Then master host, this is the IP address of my web01. Then this is the user, replica user. Then if the read master log pose is 154, which is the same position number that we found that side. Then the relay log, which is this one, which is the file name that we recorded. Then relay log position. So you find all these different things, and then once you see these things, then you know to say that it is it's working. So once you are done with this, there's something that you need to do, which is record these different. You need to record. You need to send these the info in the configuration files as your is it for MySQL configuration primary file as well as for MySQL configuration replica file. So I'm going to show you guys a much easier way to do that. So you just exit from this one. So I'm again going to exit from there. So now that I'm here, in order to In order to get those files, you can simply use SCP. So because I already added the path to my private key in the SSH config file, I'm not going to use the I option. So you simply say SCP, then Ubuntu, excuse me. So Ubuntu at web01.that.tech. Then just need to specify the path to the file that I'm looking for. So which is etc, then MySQL, then mysql.conf.d, then mysqld should be mysql. Okay, so let me just remove those. Okay, so slash mysql this is a file that I want to copy. So web01 is the source. So it says provide your MySQL primary configuration as an answer. So for the primary configuration, it's supposed to be in the file code for MySQL configuration primary. And so you just copy whatever configuration is there into this file. And so when you run this command, it's going to copy whatever configuration is in in this file, which is mysql d.cnf, into this file for mysql that. And so if you cut, so let me just say for that, for mysql configuration primary, then I'm just going to pipe it into head so that we just see. Okay, let me just pipe it to tail so that we see the last 10 lines. So as you can notice, this is the configuration. Of course, it's long, that's why I've just piped it to tail. So you can do the same thing with web02. So for web02, you simply say scp. Even for web02, the path to the configuration file was also the same one, which is mysql d.cnf. And so you can just get the same one. Then you replace this part that says for. So replace it with for MySQL configuration replica. Then there where it says web01, I'll just change it into web02. Of course, this is the part where your web02 server IP address is supposed to be under web02.that.tech. This is where you should put your web02 IP address. So this is also going to copy that file into this file. So once you are done with these things, then you are done with task 4, which was probably the longest task for this project. So now going to task 5. Task 5, I'm not going to show you guys the exact script. I'm just going to show you how you can the things that you need to use in order to find the solution to task 5. So in order to get date time in Ubuntu, for example, if you want to get the day, you use plus, then percentage %t, and this is going to show you the day, which is the 24th. If you wanted to get the month, you simply put M there, and it's going to show you the month, which is 01, which is January. So now, an easier way to get, maybe, let's say, I'm going to say var. So var is equal to that. Then we can now run a command in there. So it's going to be date. Then I'm going to say plus. So simply say plus percentage %t, then that. Then you now say percentage %m, that. Then you now say percentage year. Of course, year is supposed to have a capital letter Y. Then you can now say dot r, then dot gz. So this is going to give you this file name. So var is going to hold that file name. So if we were to check what var holds, we'll notice to say that var holds 2401.2024.star.bz. So you can use this in order to get this file name. Now, how can you create a tar.gz file? So in order to create a tar.gz file, you simply say tar, then C for compress, Z for zip, then you now specify the file name for the compression that you want to make. So the file name, in our case, is this particular variable is one that holds the file name. So just say that var, and then we now add, because we're told to make a backup.sql default dump file. So just put backup.sql. This is going to create, a compression of backup.sql, and it's going to store that the zip file into this particular file, which we are going to call 2401 2024.start.gz. Now, how can you get a dump file for all the databases in the database? So in the script, because you need to pass the password as an argument, you can simply say MySQL dump, then you say u, because we are told to use the root user, then you can just say p, then just here, this is where you now specify the first argument. So the first argument is the one that we specify there. So if you don't leave any space, then the password that will be used is this same password that you specify there. So once you specify that, then you can now say dash dash, then you now say O, then another dash, then you now say databases. So after doing this, you also now need to add all those different things, like we see that maybe they create table commands and things like that. So we'll say add drop. So add drop database. So this is going to add all those things like create table commands and things like that. So once you do that, then you now need to redirect the output into this file that we are told to make to use, which is the backup.sql. So backup.sql. This is going to create a dump file for that. So this once you do all these things, then you are done with this particular project, which is 0x14.mysql. So thank you guys for watching this video and for sticking around for this long. Of course, I know that the video was long. So if you are new to the channel, please don't forget to subscribe, especially if you found the video really helpful. And also don't forget to comment so that I know what you guys think about the video, and also hit that like button so that other people know that the video is actually really helpful.